Good morning, everybody, and karibuni sana for today's meeting. We are excited to have you in this meeting, this webinar, this exciting project, and also to understand how relevant this project is to the Kenyan stakeholders. My name is Caroline Karaoke, and I'm acting as the AFR4 NPO. That is this particular project. And from today and from now henceforth, when I say the project, I'm referring to AFR4 NPO. I am the country champion for the Kenyan program, Kenyan project, and my main responsibility is to ensure that you are aware of the project and also to encourage you to participate. Besides the work I'm doing with this project, I also work with Open Society Foundation, Eastern Africa, as the head of finance and grants. With us, I don't know whether Chris have already joined us. With us, we have Chris Nyandoro. Is Chris with us? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, we have Chris Nyandoro from ISPAC, and we also have Samantha Masoke, who is the project director for Hamilton. So this event is a meeting rather than a training webinar. And although we are online, rather than in person, we have created a room for small group discussions. And we are also going to use the chat function to encourage interaction, discussions, and feedback. So we are going to make this meeting as exciting as just when we are on one-to-one meeting. As you can see, we are going to have 1 hour together. And there are 2 blocks of presentation. We have one small group discussion, and then we will have feedback in between. And maybe you must be wondering why we are showing a picture of NPO activity on the background. As we discuss the financial issues for NPOs, you like to keep in mind that financial reporting have little meaning apart from the context of the great work that the NPOs do around the world and here in Kenya in health and social services, education and research, environmental protection, development aid, advocacy, religion, culture, and many more. So the figures actually just back up the many activities that we normally do in the field. Just a few housekeeping tips so that you can make our meeting exciting and run smoothly. You will see, I believe by now most of us we know how to use Zoom and other platforms, because that is the normal way of meeting these days. We are not maybe we are not going to do online meeting until later on in the year. You will have the control panel from where you can mute and unmute. You can also start your video. And we are kindly requesting, unless you are presenting, to mute your microphone. And also, unless it is very necessary that you keep your video on, you also just stop your video. We are also encouraging you to use the chat function to ask queries, to send your comments, and you can use that function anytime. You're not restricted. Anytime you have something to tell us, kindly do so. And you can also address your query or chatting to the host or also to everyone else as appropriate. As I said, we are going to go into small group, not right now, but when we are in that small group, you can only use the function of raising your hand when you are the nominated spokesman and you are ready to give your feedback to the team, from the team. So to raise your feedback, you need to look at the function which is looking like a palm. You click there as a participant on the control panel, and you can raise your hand and also you can raise down your hand. Now we need to know who we are and who is with us in this meeting. And by yesterday, when we looked at the registration, we were actually over 75 participants who had already registered, and we are really excited for that. And there were all over, we had auditors, we had international and local NPOs, we had funders, we had people from the bank, and we had also people from the government. And most exciting, we had also people from the Legion. We have people from Uganda, thank you so much. We have people from Tanzania. We have, participants from South Sudan, from Rwanda, Sudan, and as far as Ethiopia. At least some of them had already confirmed. And we are really hoping that you are here with us. And in that regard, I really, really want to thank you so much. Everybody who have logged in, this is going to be a very exciting meeting, and we really look forward to your participation. So karibuni sana, feel welcome. As I said, use the channel function, to say whatever is that you would like to tell us. But let's also know who we are, and kindly, I'm requesting you to introduce yourself through the channel. We only need like 3 things you need to do. Actually, 4. 1, you write your name. Secondly, you write the institution that you come from and your role. And also thirdly, we also need to know where, especially if you're outside Kenya, just write your country so that we also know how many people outside Kenya we have. So as we continue with the meeting, kindly remember to introduce yourself, your name again, the institution, the role that you're playing in the institution, and if you're outside Kenya, you write your country. As I said, we have Sam who is from Hamilton, and we also have Cliff. And I'd like to hand over to Cliff. Cliff is going to talk a bit, slightly more about what the project was about. And just to tell you slightly more about Cliff, Cliff is, as I said, is working with ISPAC. He is the head of the technical services, accounting and auditing services. He oversees the adoption and implementation of accounting and auditing standards in the Kenyan market. So you can imagine when you have somebody like Cliff among us and working this journey with us, we are really, really going to have an exciting journey. And therefore, Cliff, I would like to hand over to you, and karibu sana. Over to Cliff.
Can you unmute, Cliff?
All right. Thank you. Thank you very much. I was waiting for Sam to unmute me. Thank you, Sam, for that. Thank you, Carol. That was very, very good of you. The introduction has been very well done. Again, I wouldn't really want to repeat what Carol has said. I work for ISPAC, Head of Technical Services, and I'm very, very happy and proud to be associated with this project. My main role at the Institute is to ensure that we implement accounting and auditing standards effectively within our market and across the East African region. So thank you very much, Sam, for also bringing me on board and to be part of this process. And together with Carol, who is our country champion, we'll ensure that we support the project, and whatever outcome, the deliverable that will come at the end of it all, I'm very sure it will be very beneficial as we look for a guidance or a standard that will guide the NPO sector in financial reporting. So thank you, and I would like to now go straight into the discussion of what IFR for NPO is. And basically, in full, this is the International Financial Reporting Standard for the NPO sector. So kindly, Sam, you can move to the next.
IFR for NPO is a 5-year initiative to develop the first ever internationally applicable financial reporting guidance for non-profit organisations. It's coordinated by Humentum and the Chartered Institute of Public Finance and Accountancy. You probably know that businesses have international financial reporting standards, and governments have international public sector accounting standards. But the not-for-profit sector has no equivalent. This undermines the consistency and usefulness of financial reports and ultimately harms the sense of trust and accountability that is so central to its effectiveness. The current system is also inefficient, with duplication of effort for both NPO and funders in meeting multiple and at times conflicting financial requirements. An academic study in 2014 received responses from 179 countries. 72% of respondents agreed that an international standard for NPOs would be useful. So, the IFR for NPO project is answering this call. By engaging a wide range of stakeholders, the new guidance will command support from the accounting community and NPOs, as well as those that fund and regulate them. The guidance is being developed in a technically rigorous 3-step process, involving a consultation phase and development of an exposure draft, with final guidance available from early 2025. With the goal that at least 10 countries will use the guidance by 2030, with more to follow. The project has a technical advisory group involving national standard setters from every continent and an official observer from the International Accounting Standards Board. And the practitioner advisory group helps us ensure the guidance will meet users' needs. The founding funders share our vision for this game-changing project. We have the opportunity of a generation. We can increase accountability and transparency while reducing inefficiency in the current system.
Thank you very much, Sam, for that brief video, which highlights what the project is all about, IFR for NPO. And I believe it sheds light in terms of why do we need a guidance for the not-for-profit organizations. And I think that is the very basis of why we have this project. And we are asking the question, which financial reports do we require for the NPO sector, and which reports is this guidance going to give guidance about? And that is basically what we'll see in the next few minutes. And as you can see, we have the accounting systems for different organizations. And based on that, we need to have a common way of treating those transactions so that they can meet the needs and the requirements of the different stakeholders, including the international community, the donor community, and the users, different users of those financial reports. Sam, I think the next thing that you would want to highlight about this project is the fact that the project focuses on the general purpose financial statements and accounting narrative reports, more or less the same way we have the IFRS standards, which give guidance in the basic components of a full set of financial statements. And one of the things that we require in a full set of financial statements is the narratives. And the project is also going to focus on what is the full set of financial statements that will be required for an NPO organization or for a non-profit sector organization, and what would be the accompanying narratives that will provide more information to the users of those financial reports. We have another project that is working to harmonize the donor project reporting formats, and I think this will complement the work that the IFR for NPO is doing, and I hope that will add more value and bring about the kind of quality that will be expected whenever we are generating financial reports for the NPOs. Who are the different stakeholders that will be expected to use this guidance or to use the financial reports that will be generated using this particular guidance? We have the users, the preparers, the auditors, and among the users, we have the donors, the regulators, the clients, the public, and many other users who will be expected to use those financial reports. In terms of the preparers, of course, most of us are preparers in our own rights, in our own different roles that we play within the different organizations. And of course, the auditors will be required to audit and give assurance on those financial statements. They will also find it a lot easier to use the guidance in order to have comparable financial statements and to have a basis for which they can perform their audits in a more consistent way. What will the project deliver? I think when we look at the current challenges that we face within the NPO sector, we realize that we do not have an international financial reporting standards for NPOs. There is inconsistency in the way these financial reports are prepared. They don't meet the funders' needs. There is high cost that is associated with the funders and the guarantees because each one comes with their own regulations and guidelines. And of course, that also leads to lack of transparency and double funding fraud because we have no consistent way of preparing financial statements that are fit for purposes of funders and other stakeholders. The solution for this, therefore, comes in having the IFR for NPO guidance, which will be adopted by the different jurisdictions, the countries, and also the funders who will adopt them in terms of making the relevant decisions when it comes to assessment of the NPOs which they need to fund and for which they require financial reports in terms of their investments in those NPOs. The future outcomes that we expect out of the process, number one, will be improved usefulness, transparency, and the consistency of the NPO financial reports. There is also the aspect of NPOs being able to demonstrate capacity and attract more funding. The funders will be better able to reliably assess the NPOs and the capacity of those NPOs to absorb the funding. Simplified audit assurance provision, and also for the IFRS, the IFR for NPO community, the global network of NPO stakeholders will get more value when they will get to use that particular guidance. Who is delivering the project? You might wish to ask. This is a concerted effort between Umentum and CIPFA. CIPFA is the Chartered Institute of Public Finance and Accountancy, and Umentum, we all know, it's a membership association of NPOs. And of course, when you look at the current level of membership, we find that Umentum has well over 285 members from the NPO sector. And Umentum also is the convener and advocate of the welfare of the NPOs and the staff within the NPO sector. Financial management is one focus area of the project, and of course, with the end result, as we saw, being the delivery of a guidance or a standard that will guide the preparation of financial statements for the not-for-profit organizations. CIPFA is a Chartered Institute of Public Finance and Accountancy, and they are also a unique standard setter withdrawals for local governments, and the charities within the UK. The standard will also be very useful for the accounting and audit community, and the other stakeholders will be the standard setters, the international standard setters. As you realize, we saw for the private sector, we have IFRS standards, whereas for the public sector, we have the IPSAS. So this will come in very handy in terms of having a guidance for the NPO sector, and it will go a long way towards assisting the funders and also the NPOs in terms of a consistent and a uniform way of preparing their financial statements for purposes of audit and assurance, and also for usefulness to the different categories of users who will use those financial statements. The advisory groups that are associated with the project, I think from the video we saw there is the technical advisory group and the practitioner advisory group, and most of the members in these two very critical groups within the project are drawn from different regions and the different countries across the world. So that means they will bring in their different experiences and ensure that the standard or the new guidance will meet the purposes and the requirements of the different regions and the different groups that will be using the NPO financial statements. How and when are we likely to deliver on this project? This is going to take different phases, and I work at the Institute, and one of the things that we do is to participate in the International Financial Reporting Standard Development process, and this is done through the boards under the International Federation of Accountants. And we have the different boards which, whenever they come up with new standards or they are undertaking maintenance of the standards, they seek our input through comment letters, and that we have been doing, and we hope to do the same for this particular guidance for the NPO sector, where we will have phase one being a consultation paper that will be geared towards having a structured stakeholder input, and hopefully this should be out in January 2021. That will be followed excuse me, by an exposure draft, which will be a draft guidance for public comment, as I've mentioned. This is usually a process that is followed whenever a new standard is being developed, and we have exposure draft from the International Public Sector Accounting Standards Board, as well as the IFRS Foundation, whenever there is a new IFRS or IPSA that is being developed. And so we'll have an exposure draft, which again will attract comments from different stakeholders within the public. And then once those comments are incorporated into the draft, we will have the final guidance being released and ready for adoption sometime around early 2025. As you can see, it's a process. It's not a one-step kind of project. It will take a process, and this is to ensure that all the necessary input goes into this guidance, and that it will be able to be used across the globe in terms of guiding financial reporting for NPOs. And after the final guidance that is under phase 3, once that one is ready and released for adoption, then there will be subsequent training and transition following the adoption from the year 2025 onwards. And as you saw from our earlier video, by the year 2030, we expect that at least no less than 10 countries will be expected to have adopted the standard. The standard will go through the technical rigor that is required for any standard development process, and of course with a wide stakeholder engagement process that will culminate into the development of the final guidance. It is a process that is equivalent to other international standards, and we welcome all of us to be able to give their input, give their comments when that time is due. And for that reason, we will have a process that will involve all the stakeholders. And as you can see from this, we have different engagements for different stakeholders. We have the country champions, TAG members, PAG members, and interest from 87 countries who want to see this process coming into fruition. And of course, with the deliverable being the guidance or a standard for the NPO sector.
Sorry, do you want to introduce me, Cliff?
Thank you, Sam. I have the honor and privilege to introduce Samantha. Samantha Musoke is the one leading this project. Samantha is based in Kampala most of the time, but she has a very close connection to Kenya. And for that reason, I am very confident that she's the right person to lead this process. She has been with Umentum for quite a period of time, and she is the leader of this project, as I've mentioned. And using our experience and our networks, I do believe that we will have a very good guidance at the end of the process. And I welcome you all to give her the necessary support, and welcome Samantha to make your comments and guide us in the next.
Thank you so much, Cliff, and thank you so much for giving us that fantastic overview and introducing the project as you have done. So, as Cliff said, my name is Sam.
For this engagement. Thank you so much. Over to you, Sam.
Okay, thank you very much. So, as Cliff said, my name is Sam. It's short for Samantha. Everybody calls me Sam. And Musoke, I'm from UK, but I'm married to Ugandan, to have this beautiful African name. And I've lived in Kampala for 20 years, nearly. I'm a chartered accountant. I'm a member of ISPAL and of a UK institute. And I'm really, really honored to be with you this morning. Thank you so much for joining us. So having heard that introduction from Cliff, we thought it would be good to have a time to break out into some small groups. There's, I think, 78 people here this morning. We want to break into some small groups so that you can actually discuss with each other rather than just listening. Just as Carol said at the beginning, this is not just a meeting to listen, it's also to discuss. So we're going to be using a Zoom feature called Breakout Rooms. And once the rooms are launched, you'll just be sent to a new, smaller Zoom room. And you should have maybe 5 to 8 people, something like that. And I'll unmute you so that when you do get into that small room, you can turn on your video, turn on your microphone and discuss with each other. If you have any problems in that small group, there's a function to ask the host to come and join your room. And if you've got a problem, I can come and join you there. And at the end of the 20 minutes, I'll give you a 3-minute warning, and then you'll be brought back into the main meeting automatically. Okay, so now when you're in your groups, what we'd like you to do first of all is just briefly introduce yourselves and meet each other. And then just first of all is to really talk about what questions and comments have come into your mind as you watched that video, heard Cliff's presentation. What reactions, what concerns, what hopes, what are some of the reactions, questions and comments that you had? Just share them with each other. You won't necessarily know the answers to the questions. It's just to pose those questions together, which is fine. Is there anything you'd like clarification about? And then it'll be good to choose either question 3 or question 4. You might not have time to do both. So for question 3, the benefits, I'd love you to think about how stakeholders in Kenya, or if you're outside Kenya, again, it should be really focusing on Kenya. How might NPOs, non-profit organizations benefit? What about regulators, auditors, donors, in Kenya? How would they benefit from this guidance being in place and being adopted in the longer term? If you were here right at the very beginning, you saw a thought experiment. Imagine a world where everybody is using one basis, one standard for doing their financial reports. What might the knock-on impacts of that be? So you could share your ideas at that stage. And then the fourth question, if you want to do this, really important for us to know, what challenges can you see from a Kenyan point of view in terms of realizing the vision, if you like, associated with this project? Now, as you're discussing, before you're brought back, it would be great to nominate a spokesperson who will be able to share on behalf of your group. Not everything, just some of the key points that have been raised in your group. Okay, so if there are any questions about that, please put them in the chat. Otherwise, I will open the rooms. There's one person who's just joined. Let me allocate her to a room. And here she comes. Just 1 second. This is one person who's just joined. Okay, I'm going to open the rooms now. So you have about 20 minutes. So it's now 11:34. So I'll bring, or 11:35. I'll bring you back about 5 to 12. Okay, bye. I'm just going to unmute you all first, actually, so that you can speak to each other. Unmute all. Hello, so those of you left in the main room, I can see Irene, Peter, Melvin, Geraldine. Are you seeing an invitation to join a breakout room? Oh, I can assign you. Okay, I'm going to assign to room 8, room 7, room 6, and room 5. Geraldine, are you okay? Are you able to join a small group, or you haven't seen it?